1 inch the 4-spirit royal law. When Xiao Yan saw the 4 big words on the scroll, the smile on his face became even wider. When he saw the monarch skill used by Chen Rong in the underground tomb, he was truly shocked. After all, the 4 spirits were legendary existences, people or things that could be related to them. All of them were extremely powerful. Although he didn't know where the inheritance of this technique came from. It was already amazing enough that it could cultivate the 4 spirits' practicing body. He took out the scroll and held it in his hand. When he touched it, he immediately felt a warm feeling. The 4 colored patterns interweaved and complemented each other. It was full of the charm of the supreme great Tao and the simplest of thousands of Taos. He slowly opened the scroll. There were no words on the scroll. There were only 4 images on the scroll: azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. The images of the 4 spirits were vivid and lifelike. On the scroll, it seemed to be an ancient scene. The 4 spirits raised their heads and looked at the sky. The azure dragon was furious. The white tiger howling valley, the vermilion bird burning heaven, and the black tortoise were roaring. The first impression the 4 pictures gave was that they were boundless and majestic. They were filled with an ancient and primitive flavor. However, when one carefully sensed them, they seemed to be missing a lot. When Xiao Yan carefully felt the scroll in his hand, the Xiao Ao that had been soaring in the sky slowly landed on the ground. It moved closer to Xiao Yan and took a look at the scroll in the latter's hand. When it saw the 4 spirits, it frowned and then looked at the 4 pictures. The one at the top. 1. It was a long azure dragon. The azure dragon was riding on the clouds, and there were traces of azure light flashing around it, as if it could appear at any time from the scroll. Seeing the appearance of the azure dragon, the Xiao Ao could not help but be stunned. A trace of doubt and confusion flashed across its pure eyes. In the next moment, it pouted disdainfully. When it saw the smile on Xiao Yan's face, it yawned and said, "What's so good about this thing? It's just an incomplete scroll." When Xiao Yan heard this, he frowned and immediately became happy. He looked at the Xiao Ao and his eyes were filled with surprise and joy. This guy's true body was like a holy beast, and he was also one of the legendary 4 spirits, the azure dragon. There should be a deep connection between them. Perhaps, he would be able to obtain more useful information from this fellow. Seeing Xiao Yan's smiling face, the Xiao Ao stuck out its tongue. Its round face made Xiao Yan want to reach out and pinch it. This monarch skill, although it looks like a high-grade monarch spell, but because it is related to the 4 spirits, it should be very powerful, but... The Xiao Ao pondered for a moment, then shook its head and said with some confusion, "I can't tell what the exact flaws are. You can cultivate it first, and then observe it slowly." After listening to the Xiao Ao's words, Xiao Yan calmed down his excited mood. He wasn't very disappointed. After all, the 4-spirit emperor technique was related to the 4-spirit monarch skill. Even if it was just a small part of the technique, its power wasn't to be underestimated. This was just an incomplete scroll. Back then, Chen Rong had used it to kill a death spirit corpse guard with a single strike. If he could find all the scrolls, how powerful would it be? Xiao Yan really couldn't imagine it. Furthermore, there was also a Xiao Ao beside him. In terms of familiarity with the 4 spirits, Xiao Yan wouldn't be able to catch up with the inheritance of the 4 spirits even if he flattered them. After playing with it for a while, Xiao Yan reluctantly put it into the storage ring. His soul energy once again surged into the ghost head ring and continued to search the neatly arranged items. The remaining books were mostly ordinary monarch spell. Although there were a lot of them, Xiao Yan was not interested in cultivating them. He still had to choose the ones suitable for him to cultivate the monarch skill. For example, Xiao Yan did not have the ambition of being proficient in hundreds of skills. He understood the principle of biting off more than one could chew. He did not want to end up with nothing in the end. His eyes swept across the pile of books in a hurry. He automatically ignored the monarch spell level monarch skill. After that, a red invitation card that was pressed under a scroll of monarch skill suddenly appeared in Xiao Yan's eyes. With a hint of curiosity, Xiao Yan took it out. Chen Rong was a monarch emperor level expert, and the invitation card that he had kept in his collection must be of great strength or status. It was a good opportunity for him to see what the local tyrant of this region was. Xiao Yan opened the invitation card and carefully read the words on it. He couldn't help but reveal a strange expression. As expected, The person who sent out the invitation card was the local tyrant of this region. His name was Profound Yin Sect. And the time was exactly 10 days later. The sect master of Profound Yin Sect, Yin Juxuan, personally wrote the invitation letter and invited Chen Rong to participate in the auction held by Profound Yin Sect in Profound Yin Castle 10 days later. This auction could be considered the largest auction event in this domain, and it was thousands of miles in radius. The experts of dozens of castles would participate in the auction. It was rumored that the experts from even further away would come because of this event. As the Lord of the Northern Forest Fort, the auction of the Profound Yin Sect naturally wouldn't miss Chen Rong. Xiao Yan had also heard about this Profound Yin Sect when he was resting in Black Sand Castle. It was the largest gang in this region. Of course, the biggest was only relative. In this lawless region, there were many gangs in the area, although many sects were established today. They were destroyed the next day, but there were still many people who were happy to be established. Among them, the Profound Yin Sect could be considered one of the major sects. It had been standing there for several decades without collapsing. It seemed that it already possessed the strength to match some of the major sects. The sect chief, Yin Juxuan, had reached the emperor cultivation. He had many powerful warriors under his command. Although he was the only emperor cultivation, there were naturally many monarch emperor-level warriors. With absolute deterrence, he dominated this vast land. In the invitation letter, Yin Juxuan had intentionally revealed that there would be an extremely precious item appearing in the auction, and it would not be any weaker than the heavenly weapon. The abrupt ending of the auction had made the auction even more unusual. Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel tempted when he saw this. Since Yin Juxuan had gone through so much trouble to host such an event, it indicated that a rare treasure that would make people go crazy would appear in the auction. Something like the heavenly core should be an ordinary item. This meant that if he was lucky enough, he would be able to gather all 5 of them. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's mind spun quickly. A moment later, he couldn't help but look at the invitation card in his hand. A bold idea popped up in his mind. After carefully looking at it, there was no name of Chen Rong on the invitation card. Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile. Without a name, no one would know who the person holding the invitation card was. As long as the person hid his face, even an acquaintance wouldn't be able to recognize him. He could use this invitation card to enter the auction venue. Although he didn't know what kind of special care the person holding the invitation card had, it should be much better than ordinary people. After making up his mind to go, Xiao Yan pondered for a moment and looked at the yawning Xiao Ao by the side. This fellow had been yawning ever since he ate a fragment of an eggshell. He didn't know if it was the time for him to rest or not. He could use the invitation card to enter unimpeded, but how could the Xiao Ao enter? It was a difficult problem. Seeing Xiao Yan looking at him, the Xiao Ao yawned lazily once again, wiped away the tears in its big eyes, and said somewhat tiredly, "Xiao Yan, I'm tired. You can take a look at the rest yourself. I need to rest." After saying that, the Xiao Ao's figure flashed and disappeared. It turned into a ray of light and entered Xiao Yan's body in an instant. Seeing the Xiao Ao suddenly disappear, Xiao Yan opened his mouth and let out a soft laugh. He never thought that this guy would be able to enter his body after turning into a human. In that case, the problem of this headache would be solved. Stretching his back, Xiao Yan put the invitation card into his clothes. Looking at the boundless desert in the distance, he couldn't help but let out a long roar towards the sky. His heart was overwhelmed with emotions. The next location would be the Profound Yin Castle. 2. The star-severing mountain range cuts across the entire southern part of the galaxy, which can be considered a dividing line between the central and southern parts. In this land, there was an ancient desert that was tens of thousands of miles long. All kinds of humans were gathered here. Without proper and orderly management, this place eventually became a chaotic heaven, a holy land for criminals. Speaking of which, Black Sand Castle was the only human fort within 1,000 miles. However, in terms of scale, it was far inferior to the Profound Yin Castle, not to mention its strength. As the castle master, Su Chang was merely a monarch emperor level. In the Profound Yin Castle, although the castle master wasn't Yin Juxuan, the latter's power was far higher than the so-called castle master of the Profound Yin Castle, and he controlled everything in the Profound Yin Castle. Xiao Yan didn't think too much about the changes in the structure of the Black Sand Castle after losing a few top combat strength. In this chaotic region, nothing could last for a long time. What this place lacked the most was death and ruin. According to the map he bought in the Black Sand Castle, the profound Yin Castle was quite a distance away from the Black Sand Castle. The first thing to walk forward for a few days was the Northern Forest Castle controlled by Chen Rong, and then profound Yin Castle. After making up his mind, Xiao Yan did not delay any longer. After a short rest, he set off in the direction of the Northern Forest Fort. Time was of the essence, and he did not dare to delay any longer. Besides, Xiao Yan had already made up his mind. Xiao Yan was extremely interested in cultivating the Four-Spirit Emperor technique in the next few days. Although it was only a high-grade monarch spell, its power couldn't be underestimated. Yellow sand filled the sky and thousands of miles of the Crimson Desert. The scarlet-red mountain range was endless, like a huge dragon that was lying on the ground for thousands of miles, bringing with it the majestic feeling of the lone desert smoke. Due to the rest of the Xiaoaos, Xiao Yan was only traveling alone. The dangers he encountered along the way were secondary. After all, there were very few people here, only a few spirit beasts. Compared to the savage spirit beasts, humans were the most terrifying existences. Without the presence of humans, the dangers of this place would be greatly reduced. Other than the dangers one might encounter outside one's body, the most painful thing was the loneliness in one's heart. Walking in the desert, he accompanied the yellow sand every day. There were a few times when Xiao Yan's tough heart was slightly shaken. This place was much more lonely than the forest domain. He raised his head and looked over. There were only mountain rocks standing all around, and the branches and leaves of the extremely rare ancient trees were badly damaged. Under the illumination of the setting sun, the black corrosive crow fell down. Its eyes seemed to be flickering with a ghostly fire as it looked at Xiao Yan, who was walking alone in the desert. It let out a horrified cry, adding to its terror. Although the Xiaoao had transformed into a human form, because he had eaten the eggshell fragment, every time he ate it, it would solidify some of the floating origin monarch cheese within his body. However, the result was that he was unable to control his fatigue. Most of the time, he would hide within Xiao Yan's body and rest. Based on the interactions between him and the Xiaoao over the past few days, Xiao Yan had a rough idea of the reason why the strength of the Xiaoao had soared. Previously, the Spirit of Heartflame had killed Mu Lin and a few other large Monarch Emperor-level experts in a row and obtained their respective Origin Monarch crystals. The Origin Monarch crystals contained the Origin Monarch cheese that they had cultivated for their entire lives. Naturally, the energy contained within them was enormous. After the Spirit of Heartflame entered the Xiaoao's body, it was a matter of life and death, and by chance, it ignited the bloodline within the Xiaoao's body. Following the eruption of the bloodline power, the true form of the Spirit of Heartflame was completely devoured. As for the few Origin Monarch crystals in the latter's body, they were naturally accepted by the Xiaoao. The eggshell that was formed after the Xiaoao was formed from the Origin Monarch Qi. Due to the enormous energy, it far exceeded the energy required for the Xiaoao to evolve. The rest of the Origin Monarch Qis were transformed into eggshells under the influence of the Dragon Qi. This also explained the reason why the Xiaoao's strength would increase after eating the eggshells. After being catalyzed by the Dragon Qi, the energy contained within the eggshells was not inferior to any fifth-rank medicine pill. After knowing the reason why the Xiaoao's strength had increased, Xiao Yan smiled and felt delighted in his heart. The former's strength had already reached the Monarch Emperor level, which was good news for him. During this trip to the profound Yin Castle, he would need the help of the Xiaoao. There were very few people in the world, although each castle had a mercenary group that lived by hunting spirit beasts. Compared to such a desolate place, people tended to be more inclined towards the deep mountains and valleys. There, if they were lucky, after a few days. Of course, are spirit beasts in their stomachs. At dusk, he hid in a naturally formed stone cave. When a violent sandstorm swept past, Xiao Yan heaved a sigh of relief. After walking for a few days continuously, he had become extremely nervous. Now, he could finally have a good rest. Ha ha! A clear laughter sounded from outside the cave. Xiao Yan did not need to look to know that it was the Xiaoao. Although this fellow seldom woke up, he would still play around every time he woke up. Just as the violent sandstorm swept over, the Xiaoao happily rushed out and played in the sandstorm. At this moment, the large clothes on the Xiaoao's body were in tatters. However, The former did not care at all. In his heart, the concept of clothes was extremely vague. This kind of extremely naive heart also caused Xiao Yan to be quite speechless. Seeing that the Xiao didn't have any thoughts of eating the eggshell, Xiao Yan rested for a while. With a flick of his finger, the Four-Spirit Emperor Technique scroll appeared in his hand. Those who participated in the Profound Yin Sex auction were all famous experts. He wanted to take it back in such an occasion. The growth of his strength was essential, but now, the fastest way to improve his strength was the Monarch skill, the Four-Spirit Sovereign Technique. This was the most appropriate Monarch skill. He gently opened the scroll. The images of the four spirits were vivid and lifelike. In his trance, he could hear the roars of dragons, the cries of birds, and the cries of turtles. The wind and thunder mixed within seemed to resonate with the origin Monarch Qi. When the Xiao saw Xiao Yan's actions, it stopped curiously. It moved closer to Xiao Yan and looked at the images in the scroll once again. Its big eyes, which were flickering with spirit light, once again flashed with a lost luster. He slowly immersed his soul energy into the four-colored scroll in his hand. In an instant, four extremely large soul informations surged into Xiao Yan's head like a tsunami. The latter's head buzzed at this moment and seemed to be about to explode. The Xiao looked at Xiao Yan's somewhat uncomfortable face. Its small face pouted. He looked at Xiao Yan as if he was looking at an idiot. Could it be that this guy doesn't know that the Monarch skill that has an image engraved on it should be? Observe the images one by one. Under the disdainful gaze of the Xiao Yan's expression gradually returned to normal. However, his tightly shut eyes still didn't open. He was completely immersed in it as he carefully observed the huge information that came from the four pictures. There were four spirits in the ancient times, and their powers shook the heavens and earth. Although it has been hundreds of millions of years, its spirit has existed forever. The loud sound of a yellow bell echoed continuously in Xiao Yan's mind. The four spirits' appearances gradually appeared, and their expressions varied. They were full of power, as if they were going to pierce through the heavens and shatter the universe. As Xiao Yan closed his eyes to observe, the Xiao's gaze when looking at the scroll also gradually solidified. Its small face was filled with seriousness. It took a long time before it giggled and looked at Xiao Yan. It pouted and did not speak. It quietly waited for Xiao Yan to open his eyes. After observing for a while, Xiao Yan slowly opened his eyes. His expression was full of doubt. It seemed like this four-spirit emperor technique was really badly damaged. In the space of Xiao Yan's consciousness before this, although the qi of the four-spirit was as majestic as a mountain, it lacked an inner qi. There was no trace of spirituality, the laws they conveyed. Naturally, they were extremely weak. Seeing Xiao Yan's puzzled expression, the Xiao sniggered by the side. Its large eyes flickered, and its gaze was filled with ridicule. Without waiting for Xiao Yan to speak, the Xiao said disdainfully, "This so-called four-spirit emperor technique is completely breaking the rules." Between the four spirit tribes, each of them had their own legacy scriptures. I don't know about other things, but I still have a vague impression of the inheritance of the Azure Dragon Clan. The legacy scripture of the Azure Dragon Clan in the scroll you're holding is simply randomly written. Pausing for a moment, the Xiao yawned and said lazily, "This scroll might have been created by some expert who had analyzed some of the bloodline inheritances of some of the four spirits' descendants. However, those heavenly beasts have been mixed for countless generations and their bloodline has long been impure. How can it be as pure and flawless as mine?" At the end of his words, the Xiao couldn't help but straighten its chest. Its small face was filled with pride, and its large eyes were narrowed into a line. Pure and flawless. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Why did this guy change so much after transforming into a human form? It was really too naughty. Then tell me what to do. After a few black lines flashed across his forehead, Xiao Yan reached out his hand and rubbed the red hair of the former. He instantly kneaded the red hair into a messy bird's nest, causing the Xiao's face to be filled with displeasure. It muttered something that it didn't know what to say. Since it's about the laws of the four spirits, then you should understand the essence of the four spirits. Only by doing so can you unleash this ability to the greatest extent. He waved his fair and tender little hand to smooth his hair. The Xiao puffed up his face. He said in a huff, then rolled his eyes. He revealed a mocking smile and looked at Xiao Yan as he laughed and said, comprehend the essence of the four spirits. There were two ways. The first was to meet with the real four spirits. Create a bloodline connection. This way. The second way is to maximize the power of the four-spirit law. The second way was to collect the essence blood of the four-spirit and merge it with the four-spirit chi. It can also unleash a relatively powerful law. After pausing for a moment, the Xiaoao's smile became more and more playful, causing Xiaoyan's heart to tremble. This fellow had some evil intentions. You're welcome. If I can absorb all the essence blood of the four spirits, this monarch skill can at least reach the saint level. The Xiaoao patiently guided him, and the words it said made Xiaoyan's eyes burn with passion. When he saw the former's big eyes, Xiaoyan immediately calmed down. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. This was just boasting. With his current strength, he was only at the saint level. Besides, it was not certain whether the four spirits existed or not. He twitched his mouth. Xiaoyan did not say anything and continued listening to the Xiaoao talk. Of course. With your current strength, not to mention the four spirits, you won't even be able to find some descendants with pure bloodlines. As for me, I can provide you with the source blood essence of the Azure Dragon. Blinking his eyes, the Xiaoao said with a smile. Xiaoyan smiled faintly when he heard this. He shook his head with a determined look in his eyes. Impossible. Consuming the blood essence of the source will consume the source. Even if I don't cultivate this monarch skill, I don't need it. After listening to Xiaoyan's unquestionable words, the Xiaoao curled its lips, and a few black lines flashed across its brows. Although it was depressed that it had failed in its plan to trick Xiaoyan once, it still revealed a trace of warmth in its heart. After stretching his body, the Xiaoao said lazily, "Then forget it." However, there is still another way to strengthen this four-spirit emperor technique. It is to borrow some Emperor cultivation level high-grade heavenly beasts' heavenly cores to extract the essence of the heavenly cores and merge it into its own cultivation law. The effect shouldn't be bad. After muttering to himself for a while, the Xiaoao's body flashed and turned into a ray of fiery light that entered Xiaoyan's body. After listening to the last words of the Xiaoao, Xiaoyan frowned and could only smile bitterly. This method was also impossible for him. He couldn't even gather all the mid-grade heavenly cores, let alone high-grade heavenly cores. Sighing, Xiaoyan got up and walked out of the cave. The wild sand that filled the sky had already dissipated. The cool autumn wind blew past, bringing a trace of coolness. Let's cultivate this first. Although it's only a monarch spell, its power is quite strong. After weighing the four-colored scroll in his hand, Xiaoyan could not help but become silent. Currently, the only monarch skill he could use was the heavenly monarch fire-burning body that he had yet to figure out. There was only the 8-directional thunder ruler, the ruler technique, the 1,000 illusion wandering dragon leg. Although the sky spill fist and other kinds of monarch skill were powerful, however, their level was too low, and they were facing stronger and stronger opponents. Obviously, it was not enough. When Xiaoyan thought of the sky spill fist, he recalled the words that Man Yun had said when he gifted him the Sky Spill Fist in Forest Domain a long time ago. This monarch skill was just one of the incomplete pages of the monarch arts. There were also the other 3 punches. If they were combined together, their power would be unparalleled. Are you kidding me? If I want to collect the remaining 3 punches, it would be like finding a needle in a haystack. Helplessly sighing, Xiaoyan did not waste any more time. He entered the cave again and casually used monarch flames to form a fire curtain at the entrance of the cave. He unfolded the scroll in his hand and began to comprehend it carefully. Yunluo Academy. As the new batch of students entered the academy, the Yunluo Academy welcomed a new batch of fresh blood. The energetic smiles of the young men and women added some beautiful scenery to the academy that had been peaceful for a year. There are still no good seedlings this year. Looking at the name list in his hands, the black-robed elder in charge of the new Students' Academy sighed. There were close to 2,000 people in this year's academy, and the one with the highest talent was a medium-grade trial participant with 6 flashes of light. There were only a few people with 5 flashes of light, and most of them were in the lower levels of trials. Ever since that year, the quality of the students recruited by the Yunluo Academy had become lower and lower. That young man from 8 years ago, if he's still alive, his strength must be extraordinary. The black-robed elder let out a sigh of regret. All these years, not to mention holy rank trials, the number of students recruited in the advanced level smelting trial was only a handful. Could it be that the future of Yunluo Academy was destined to be bleak and bleak? Elder Chi, according to the orders of the headmaster a few years ago, the students of the low-level trials will no longer complete their own trials. Instead, they will be led by the students of the previous generations to roam outside the academy for a few months and complete the corresponding missions at the same time. I wonder which batch of students will lead them this time? Beside the black-robed elder, a relatively younger elder looked at the name list in his hand and asked with some doubt. "Woo!" Elder Chi pondered for a moment. He mumbled to himself, "The new students have just entered. Let them familiarize themselves with the environment in the courtyard first. As for the instructors, oh right, in a few months' time, there will be a group of senior students from the outside world coming out from illusory spirit realm." The young elder who heard the question nodded his head in agreement. Elder Chi nodded and said, "Since that's the case, let them lead the way." He waved his hand. Elder Chi threw away the name list in his hand. He was too lazy to take another look, and with a tremble, he disappeared. The young elder let out a bitter laugh. With a flip of his palm, a jade plate appeared in his hand. Inside the jade plate was a record of the old students who would be coming out of illusory spirit realm in a few months' time. After sending his soul force into the jade token, the young elder looked at nearly 100 names and couldn't help but recite them in a soft voice. Zhu Kun, C201 Profound Yin Castle. With the support of the people of Profound Yin sect, the news of the auction had spread like wildfire. It had spread across a large area, especially the rumor that there would be an auction for the divine weapon in this year's auction, causing countless people to boil with excitement. They had traveled thousands of miles to the Profound Yin Castle, hoping to gain something from it. As the date of the auction approached, the number of people flowing in Profound Yin Castle increased. Every day, the number of people had reached a terrifying number. The fact that almost half of the people in Star-Severing Mountain Range were gathered here indicated that the auction was going to become popular this time, and it also supported the strong appeal of the Profound Yin sect. At dusk, a wind started blowing in the desert. The wind and sand started blowing, sweeping across the sky. The wind was blowing in all directions in the sky, slowly drifting towards the direction of the Profound Yin Castle. The Profound Yin Castle was extremely vast. From the sky, it looked like an ancient giant beast crawling on the ground. In the Scarlet Desert, the Profound Yin Castle was like a lone island in the ocean, gathering the prosperity and vitality within a 1,000-mile radius. Although it was dusk, there were still many people entering and leaving the Profound Yin Castle. The soldiers guarding the gate were called the guards of the Castle Master's mansion, but they were actually disciples of the Profound Yin Castle. They were checking the people passing by, of course. Due to the auction, there were many experts who held the invitation letter written by the master of Profound Yin sect in the crowd. None of these people were easy to provoke, which made these soldiers humble. There was not much friction at the entrance of the fortress. The sun was setting, and the sun was setting. As the night fell, the fortresses around Profound Yin Castle were brightly lit. It was as if it was daytime, illuminating the desert within a few miles. Amidst the faint lights, a figure slowly walked over. The person was dressed in a bloated black robe, and most of his face was covered by the black robe's hat. His footsteps were neither fast nor slow as he walked towards the fortress. Hey, the influence of auction is really great. There are still people coming at such a late hour. He glanced at the black-robed man who was walking towards them, and the man who was guarding the gate. One of the guards couldn't help but smile. Due to the chaos in Star-Severing Mountain Range, usually no one would come in or out at this late hour. With auction's influence, even in the middle of the night, no one would come in or out. Many people had arrived. Xiao Yan walked closer and raised his head slightly. The majestic fortress was obviously not something Black Sand Castle could compare with. There were several arrow towers standing there. Each tower had dozens of spirit weapon spears that could kill any spirit beast. At the entrance in front of them, there were even experts at the Emperor level leading the crowd to maintain order. At this moment, there were still 2 or 3 groups of people entering the entrance. These soldiers only glanced at Xiao Yan a few times before they put the ladder into the tower. The current Profound Yin Castle was heavily guarded, and even Emperor cultivation experts wouldn't dare to attack it. It was impossible for such a chaos to occur. After entering the Profound Yin Castle, the lights in the castle naturally dimmed, and the crowds continued to flow. As the auction approached, the business in this place improved, and the desolate desert was swept away, bringing endless prosperity to this place. Walking on the main street, Xiao Yan was surrounded by a bustling crowd. He couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. This feeling was as if he had returned to the night of the imperial capital. While enjoying this rare moment of leisure, Xiao Yan's sharp soul force was also slightly stirred. Behind this bustling scene, there were many experts from the profound Yin sect who were secretly watching this place. If they found out about the fight, they would be attacked by the most vicious attack from the profound Yin sect. Under their influence, they would never allow anything that could affect the auction to happen. This was also noticed by many experts. They had repeatedly warned their followers not to cause trouble openly. Xiao Yan was also quite interested in the lively night scene. However, he had to make preparations for the auction the next day. He didn't know what benefits the invitation in his arms would give him. If he wanted to obtain an item that he liked in this auction, he obviously wouldn't be able to obtain it with just the 10 million monarch crystals he had on him. As for items, a 5th grade medicine pill, even a monarch emperor level warrior would be moved by it. A medicine pill of this level, the price of any one of these monarch crystals would definitely not be lower than 500,000 monarch crystals. After making up his mind, Xiao Yan determined his direction. He quickly walked towards the largest medicine pavilion in the profound Yin castle. Since he was going to concoct pills. If the auction was in charge of this event, he would have to concoct some profound Yin sects that were suitable for monarch emperor warriors. What they lacked the most was emperor cultivation warriors, and a medicine pill that would bring great benefits to the monarch emperor level expert. Compared to the same amount of monarch crystals, it was more attractive to them. With his current energy, refining medicine pills below the 5th grade and 3 stars was already very easy. If his luck was good, he could refine dozens of monarch crystals in one night's time, which also meant that there were close to 6 million monarch crystals. Medicine Pavilion was a medicine market that had a very close relationship with the profound Yin sect. There were many kinds of herbs here. After all, in the depths of star-severing mountain range, there were many rare and unusual things in those inaccessible places. However, the place of growth was too dangerous. Even so, they couldn't stop groups of herbalists who had been saving them for many years. The number of herbs in Medicine Pavilion had already reached an extremely terrifying level. Entering Medicine Pavilion, the ground that was paved with white jade was smooth and delicate. Looking at the hall on the first floor, countless crystal glass cabinets were neatly arranged. Among them, there were numerous medicinal herbs with full bodies. There were all kinds of herbs that dazzled people. He took a glance at the medicinal herbs on the first floor. Most of them were raw materials used to refine some Tier 3 and 4 medicine pills. Although there were some rare and precious items, they were of no use to Xiao Yan at this moment. Shaking his head, Xiao Yan walked straight to the staircase. He planned to go up to the second floor to take a look. According to the usual practice, the higher the floor was, the better the items inside would be. Hey, young man, only Tier 4 and above alchemists are allowed to go up to the second floor. Don't overestimate yourself. The things on the first floor are enough for you to learn for the rest of your life. Just as Xiao Yan was about to go upstairs, a heavy voice suddenly sounded from behind him. After that, a middle-aged man wearing a brocade robe strode forward. He glanced at Xiao Yan and smiled faintly. Without saying anything else, he led a young man to the second floor. When the middle-aged man looked at Xiao Yan also looked at the former. The man's sideburns were slightly white, and his square face had an imposing manner. Clearly, this was the aura of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. As he walked like a dragon or a tiger, filled with the dignity of someone in a high position. Seeing the two of them go up, Xiao Yan slightly narrowed his eyes and looked at his current clothes. He could not help but laugh. How could he forget the voice of this middle-aged man? Many years ago in Forest Domain, if it wasn't for him, it would have been difficult for him to become a sovereign. However, the help of this middle-aged man made him angry. Xiao Yan slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. He squinted his eyes and watched the middle-aged man and the young man disappear. The smile on his face grew wider and wider. He never thought that he would meet him here. Zhao Qingshan, we have to settle the score now. Xiao Yan sneered and walked straight to the second floor. After turning a few corners and walking along the stairs for a while, the door to the second floor had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan. The luxurious glass door was crystal clear and translucent, and there were strange patterns engraved on it. It looked quite pleasing to the eye. There were 2 guards dressed in black clothes in front of the door. Zhao Qingshan led the young man and swaggered into the room under their humble gazes. The 2 of them had just withdrawn their gazes from Zhao Qingshan when they saw Xiao Yan steadily walking forward. His face, which was not deliberately concealed, was unusually calm, and no emotions could be seen on his face. This, Mr. The man who was pretending to be young hesitated for a moment when he saw Xiao Yan's overly young face. After which, he took a step forward and cupped his fists. There is a rule in Medicine Pavilion. Only those who are above rank 4 alchemist or emperor are allowed to enter the 2nd floor. I wonder how strong you are, sir. Due to the auction, many powerful experts had come this time. At the same time, there were also many alchemists present. However, Xiao Yan's age was only similar to the young man beside the old man who had just entered. It was really difficult to imagine that the former had reached the strength of a rank 4 alchemist. Xiao Yan mused slightly when he saw the 2 of them blocking him. He did not deliberately prove his strength. With a cold expression, he took out an invitation card and held it in front of the 2 of them. When they saw the invitation card that Xiao Yan took out, the 2 of them instantly broke out in a cold sweat. Because of the special connection between the profound Yin sect and the Medicine Pavilion, they had naturally heard about this invitation card that was personally written by the sect chief of the profound Yin sect. As for those who could obtain this invitation card, they couldn't be considered as powerful and influential figures in various places. As for the others, they couldn't help but sweat profusely when they saw the invitation card that Xiao Yan took out. Needless to say, getting an invitation card from Yin Zhuxuan was the proof of their strength. Sir, please come in. The 2 of them hurriedly bowed, their faces filled with indescribable fear and trepidation. Although the middle-aged man from before was extremely powerful, he did not receive an invitation from Yin Zhuxuan. The young man in front of them seemed to be very young. However, if he could get an invitation, he would at least have the strength to rule an area. If he angered such a powerhouse, he would kill them in a fit of rage. Even if the Medicine Pavilion had the support of the profound Yin sect, they would not choose to become enemies with such a powerful expert for the 2 of them. Seeing the changes in the 2, Xiao Yan smiled faintly and put away the invitation card. He said intentionally or unintentionally, the soul force of the person who just entered seems to be extremely powerful. Do the 2 of you know who he is? Hearing Xiao Yan's question, the man hesitated for a moment before replying respectfully. That is the great elder of the Zhao family in Myriad Spirit City, Zhao Qingshan. His name has spread across 1,000 miles. Xiao Yan nodded slightly after hearing this. Without saying anything else, he walked straight into the hall. After leaving star-severing mountain range, he was only 1 prefecture away from the Yunluo Academy. That was the Myriad Spirit Prefecture. Myriad Spirit City was the capital of the Myriad Spirit Prefecture. The Zhao family had become one of the biggest families in the Myriad Spirit City, which meant that they were very powerful. As for Zhao Qingshan himself, when they met a few years ago in the forest domain, he was already a Tier 5 2-star alchemy master. So many years had passed. It was impossible for his strength to not improve in the future. Upon entering the 2nd floor, the decorations were even more luxurious. Although the crystal glass cabinets were much fewer than the ones on the 1st floor, the herbs inside, they were extremely precious. Similarly, compared to the 1st floor, the number of people here was even fewer. There were only a few people on the huge floor. All of these people were extremely powerful. Every one of them was placed outside. It was enough for the elders of profound Yin sect to welcome them. Zhao Qingshan and the other man who had entered earlier were leisurely pacing back and forth in the crystal glass cabinet. They nodded their heads while looking at the herbs in the cabinet. Even he was amazed by these herbs. The Medicine Pavilion was indeed worthy of being called the place with the most herbs in the star-severing mountain range. Zhao Qingshan slowly walked in front. That young man had a respectful expression as he stood with his hands behind his back. When Zhao Qingshan saw any medicinal ingredients, the young man immediately took out a monarch crystal and bought it without any hesitation. Hearing the sound of someone entering, Zhao Qingshan lazily raised his head to look at the entrance. When he saw Xiao Yan's appearance, he could not help but be slightly startled. He frowned and snorted softly. He turned his head to continue looking at the medicinal ingredients. However, His originally dignified face had a few traces of gloominess. Glancing at Zhao Qingshan, Xiao Yan pursed his lips and didn't say anything. The current Zhao Qingshan probably had already forgotten about him. This was good as well. This kind of situation where the enemy was in the open while the enemy was in the dark was very beneficial to him. Temporarily suppressing the fury in his heart, Xiao Yan began to place his gaze on the medicinal ingredients in the crystal glass cabinet. Upon closer inspection, Xiao Yan could not help but be shocked. Most of these medicinal ingredients were quite rare treasures. They were extremely helpful in refining some tier 4 or 5 6th grade medicine pills. Before coming here, Xiao Yan had already thought of what kind of medicine pill he needed to refine. Heavenly Fecta pill, a tier 5 3-star emperor pill. To a monarch emperor level expert, its effect was just like a green pattern pill to a monarch spirit. Moreover, the ingredients needed to refine it were not too precious. With Xiao Yan's current strength, he could still buy about a dozen of them. Of course, Xiao Yan also knew that although his soul power had caught up, his strength was still too weak. He didn't have enough origin monarch cheese to consume. Although he had thought about the number of medicine pills he could concoct in one night, he still had to consider whether the origin monarch chi in his body could hold on. After searching for a moment, Xiao Yan finally gathered 12 sets of medicinal ingredients to refine the Fecta pill. Although he had gained quite a lot, he had spent nearly 4 million monarch crystals. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched when he saw that the money was decreasing like flowing water. Finally, he could only helplessly sigh. Look at the medicinal ingredients that this young friend has gathered. Are you planning to refine 5th-rank medicine pills? When Xiao Yan placed all the medicinal ingredients into the storage ring, Zhao Qingshan's voice suddenly sounded from behind him. There was no joy or anger in his voice. Instead, it was calm. Looking back, Zhao Qingshan placed his hands behind his back and sized up Xiao Yan. His face constantly revealed a trace of dignity. Behind him, a handsome young man followed respectfully behind Zhao Qingshan. He also sized up Xiao Yan. His heart was filled with surprise. This young man looked to be the same age as him. How could he come to the second floor? Seeing that Zhao Qingshan really did not recognize him, Xiao Yan smiled noncommittally and looked at Zhao Qingshan. Why, can I? After hearing what Xiao Yan said, Zhao Qingshan couldn't help but frown. Immediately, a flame of fury burned in his heart. He had been speaking to this guy nicely, but he didn't expect this guy to speak in such a harsh tone. Although he was furious in his heart, Zhao Qingshan's face was still as calm as water. With a wave of his sleeve, he blocked the young man who was about to scold him. With an indifferent smile, he said, "I'm just curious. Your strength is merely at the emperor level. How can you refine some 5th-rank medicine pills? You should be buying medicinal herbs for your teacher, right? Speak. Who is your teacher? Perhaps I know him." As Zhao Qingshan spoke, a surge of soul energy surged out from between his brows. Like an invisible violent storm, the space in front of the two of them slowly took shape. Sensing Zhao Qingshan's soul energy, Xiao Yan's expression became slightly serious, but he immediately understood. This old man's soul energy had already reached the peak of middle period of alien stage, but he still didn't have the strength to concoct the 6th-grade medicine pill. In the great world, 5th-rank medicine pills and 6th-grade medicine pills were undoubtedly a boundary point. Whether it was in terms of value or effect, the latter was a boundary point. From the looks of it, it was more than 10 times higher than the former, just like the gap between a monarch emperor and an emperor cultivation. Xiao Yan sneered. He didn't show any signs of weakness. The soul force between his brows surged out as well. It was like a huge sword that could cut through the blue sky, and it shot towards the center of the violent storm. The violent impact of the energy shocked Zhao Qingshan. At the same time, Xiao Yan's cold voice slowly sounded out, "I'm sorry. You don't have the right to know my master's name." Quote,